So let me ask you a really strange question. Would you eat radioactive food or breathe radioactive air knowing that they were radioactive? If your answer is no, you really need to hear this because everything that you've ever eaten has been radioactive, and everything that you've ever breathed has had radioactivity in it. Yeah, that yummy avocado toast that we all love, it's chock full of potassium, which is radioactive. And that fresh spring air that we all love, it's got radon in it. It's radioactive. And all of those lovely movies that we see of outer space, yeah, it's filled with ionizing radiation. And that's because nature is now, always has been, always will be radioactive. It is ubiquitous. So let's look at some of this. Specifically, let's look at potassium. Potassium is in the same chemical family as sodium. And so the body treats it much like sodium, except potassium has a high energy gamma and a high energy beta higher than cesium, cesium-137. Cesium-137 is the dominant gamma dose rate that you get from spent fuel when it's ready to be sent to a geological repository. The main external dose rate that you get there from spent fuel is that cesium-137. And since it's in the same chemical family as sodium and potassium, it would behave like that in the environment or any kind of biota. But potassium is essential to life. Even though it's got a high energy beta and high energy gamma, you would die without it because it's required to get water in and out of our cells. And scientific studies have shown that this will improve your health if you have more potassium, or more specifically, if the amount of potassium to sodium that you have is balanced, because that's what we need to get water in and out of our blood cells. Well, here's a graph that came from the National Council on Radiation Protection, showing where all of this radiation comes from that we all get as American citizens. And what you can see here is that the dominant portion of the radiation that we get from the environment is from radon. Now, there's still a little bit that you get from space and a little bit from the internal potassium and what comes up from the Earth, because the Earth is filled with thorium and uranium. That's where geothermal energy largely comes from, is from the radioactive decay of thorium and uranium and their decay products and potassium. But about half of our total dose is only natural. The other half largely just comes from medicine, different medical exams that we get. You know, I mean, you don't want a physician fixing a broken bone without an x-ray, right? That's pretty important. But what's interesting is that this industrial slice, this less than 0.1%, that includes nuclear energy. So the dose that you get from nuclear energy is really, really small, but people tend to be thinking that that's probably one of the worst things that you could have happen to you. But in reality, radiation, radioactivity, it's natural. We're designed for a certain amount based on